Well, good afternoon. I'm Latasha Peebles, Grant Manager on the Entrepreneurship and Innovation team with the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, affectionately known as the MEDC. The MEDC's Entrepreneurship and Innovation Initiative includes 21 smart zones spread across the state, and each smart zone houses business incubators that help entrepreneurs and startups alike. Along with these smart zones, we also have strategic service providers that provide additional support and assistance to these entrepreneurs and startups. Of those strategic service providers, we have the Flint Ferris Wheel, better known as 100K Ideas. The Flint Ferris Wheel is a business incubator that is strategically housed in downtown Flint and is helping entrepreneurs in Flint and surrounding areas. Joining me today from that incubator is none other than Miss Brandee Cooke Brown, who serves as the Executive Director of 100K Ideas. So welcome, Brandee.
Thanks for having me. I'm very excited to be here and talk about the work we're doing.
Absolutely, so am I. If you could kick us off and just tell us a little more about 100K Ideas and your roles there.
Yeah, absolutely. So 100K Ideas is a nonprofit. It was founded in 2017, a little before that, opened in 2017, with the goal of relieving the innovator of the entrepreneurial burden. And so essentially what that means is we know innovation is in all forms across the state of Michigan, but getting to the entrepreneur status of that innovation can be difficult. So we were designed to help people literally as early as idea stage, help people navigate through this process and hopefully get their idea, which can be a product, a service, a nonprofit idea, whatever it may be, to market. And so we do that by not only providing these direct client services and this programming, but we also help develop the workforce by employing current college students who help these entrepreneurs and budding innovators and entrepreneurs take their ideas to market. So it's a great atmosphere. It creates a learning environment for all of those involved.
Excellent description, Brandee. Can you speak a little more to your current role and kind of a day-to-day process for you?
Yeah. So in the role of executive director, a lot of it recently has been focused on strategy building. So we've been open for 3 years, or close to 3 years, I should say. Our birthday's coming up. And one of the big things that we're doing is, making sure, we were able to do so much in 3 years. So how do we hone in on what we've been able to do, set some reasonable goals for what we look to accomplish for this next 3-year period. So that's really a big part of it. And also what's also been fun is we've been recruiting staff. So we're going to be bringing on a group of new students in the next couple of weeks, which we're really excited about as well. And we're happy to be able to continue to provide that opportunity for local college students.
Excellent. So building off your experience with 100K Ideas, what MEDC resources have you been able to connect entrepreneurs with?
Yeah, so there's so many. And I think that is what makes Michigan so unique, is if you don't do something or you can only take it so far, there are plenty of other resources in this ecosystem to help you. So we've developed really strong partnerships with Lean Rocket Lab in Jackson, Michigan, for example, with their programming. So it's a kind of dual referral relationship. So if somebody comes to them that is a little too early for their programming, they're like, hey, go see 100K Ideas, now virtually talk to us, which it makes it a little easier for them to just say, hey, this is what I'm looking to do. We help them flesh it out, get to the root of the problem they're trying to solve. And then they're able to take that information back and start growing a little bit more and be prepared for those services. And then also for our clients that kind of what I call age out of our resources, we're happy to do the same and refer them to Lean Rocket Lab or Lawrence Tech University Centropolis Center is a huge as well in terms, especially with manufacturing and when people are ready to scale their products. So we've been fortunate enough to use those. And then also even locally, we have the University of Michigan. Flint has an economic development center, which is recently rebranded, and that's fantastic. I think it suits their work, encompasses their work a lot more. And with their innovation incubator, and we've created such a strong partnership doing kind of that same referral structure, like, hey, we can get you to this point, but we have somebody here that can help take you and continue to move you all the way while we're also still supporting you. So we've developed some really strong partnerships, and we're very excited to be a part of this ecosystem.
So Brandee, speaking more on the virtual format in the climate given COVID, What have you guys had to do to pivot to meet the needs of entrepreneurs and startups?
Yeah, absolutely. So, one, we went to remote work, which was an interesting adjustment, but I just always like to say how well our staff did in adjusting to it. I mean, think about it as a college student and your job now goes remote. Like that's not normal. They did a fantastic job in that transition. And so what we ended up doing is switching a lot of our programming virtual. So we had a lot of plans for workshops and other activities that we were going. And so we decided, you know what, we don't have to cancel that. We can still do it. Let's still facilitate it and see what happens. And the response has been fantastic. So we've continued to we actually launched our workshop programming. So once a month, we do a topic that's very basic, kind of the intro level to all of these areas. So we've done so far just ideation, we've done marketing, and then we actually have a food and beverage one coming up with a special guest speaker who will be facilitating that conversation for us, which we're excited. And then our client services, we just went completely virtual. And while we thought, you never know how things are going to go. It actually has worked out great. It's expanded our reach across the state. I mean, we've always kind of made the exception for virtual, but to allow us to kind of go fully has kind of made it more accessible in different ways. And so this is actually a component we plan to keep. And that's what we sort of said. We were like, we can develop these strategies to adapt to COVID-19, but out of these, what can we continue to keep doing? And so we're excited that, a lot of what we've had to pivot to, these virtual intakes, virtual workshops, our social media activities. These are things we can continue hopefully pass when we get past this stage, but we can still continue and utilize. So nothing that, we spent time developing has to technically stop. So we're really excited about that.
That's great news for people who are engaging you for your services. So going along those lines, why is it important for Michigan's entrepreneurial ecosystem to continue to provide support to Flint and the things that you all are doing?
Yeah, 100%. So Flint, and I could be biased in saying this, but it's a very unique space. This is a community of innovators, and it has been since it started almost. I can fairly confidently say that. And so in the midst of everything that has happened, Flint has still managed to pull itself up, and the residents here are continuing to innovate and use entrepreneurship as a means to, replace things that were lost. And I love to talk about the small business environment that exists. You look at our downtown, it's pretty much small business. There are a couple of, bigger companies that are here, but primarily those storefronts, are filled with small business retailers, clothing companies, art salons that are owned by local individuals, tailors, restaurants that are local restaurants. So, I think if there's a place to demonstrate how small business has kind of made an impact on a community, it's shown right here in Flint. And that reach is starting to spread past just that downtown area, which we're very excited to see. And so for the ecosystem to see that and recognize and see, hey, people are here and they're doing it, that means that it can happen. And not only that, the growth can happen and it can add there and be there. So to continue to support these individuals who have literally done it on their own, to now provide some resources to help them continue to grow and expand is such a necessary thing.
And how do you see the continued involvement with the community and engaging with them as keys to your success?
100%. So, it's similar to most communities that are like Flint, there's a little bit of a barrier with the downtown environment, right? Downtown is seen as an exclusive place for certain people. And so while we've been able to break that barrier for some, there was still that hesitation about coming downtown for various reasons. So what we decided to do was open what we call our office hour locations. So right now we have 2 that have temporarily been suspended due to COVID and our in-person meetings being suspended. But we have 2 locations on the north side of Flint in well-known community centers, one Burson Field House and the other the Flint Development. FDC, Flint Development Center, sorry. And we were there once a week for a couple of hours each day, and we would just hang out. We would get to know the people that were coming in the doors. We'd offer our services. We would take intake appointments there, either scheduled or maybe they just walked in and happened to have time. And we found it very effective. I mean, people seeing us outside of our doors was a big deal. And, they knew we weren't afraid to come to them as much as we were asking them to come to us. And in addition, we're looking to expand to another location, actually on the east side of Flint, in partnership with the Latinx Technology Center. So we're very excited to kind of continue to have these satellite locations and expand them. And even now we've kind of started, now that things are slowly getting back open, we engage the farmers market where people are at, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, like, hey, how do we come up here and just say, hey, we're here, love to meet you. And so we're slowly getting back out there in terms of that engagement as well. But it's so important. I mean, people have to know you're willing to meet them where they are, not just, in the sense of where they are business-wise, but also physically where they are. And we're definitely open to doing that.
So it sounds like you guys have really taken on the task of removing those barriers and just creating a more equitable playing field for all people interested in your services.
Yeah.
What are you seeing as the top 3 needs currently, and how do you believe we should be addressing those?
Yeah, so I think the top need is always, anybody will tell you, is funding. Just people getting access to funding and knowing the types of funding that are out there. I think that's one we'll probably never get away from, really, because it's the first one. But there's some truth to it, right? So there's truth to getting access to loans for small businesses, for people who may not be in the best position to do so, but business-wise, they're actually doing well. And so kind of leading off of the funding piece, which is understanding how that works, is the knowledge gaps, and really removing barriers to access to knowledge is such a huge thing. And one of the things that myself and other partners in Flint's own kind of sub-ecosystem, as well as I know the greater Michigan ecosystem, are looking to address. Talking about funding specifically, a lot of people aren't aware of the different types of funding, right? Like, what is venture capital? What is angel investing? What does it mean when I get a small business loan? And all of these other things. And what's the difference between a loan and a grant? And, how do I use these funds to the best of, the best benefit of my business? And so addressing those knowledge gaps is a huge need. And I will say there's some great work happening in the ecosystem to help address them and get people knowledge in hand so they can move forward. And then I would say the third one is, and it's an interesting need because it's almost, I like to call it scalability, but I don't know if that's really the correct term. But we have so many people that can get to a point. They can pilot sale, they can pilot the version of their business. But when it comes time, they're like, oh, I'm doing this. Like, I'm ready to go. And again, that kind of goes back to the knowledge piece of understanding, well, how do I do this? How do I do this smart? And I'm not just scaling too fast, but also I'm addressing the needs that are now arising with it. And so there's a lot of work being done to hopefully address that. But also that's a good problem to have. I feel like when you're, you gotta like, hey, I'm scaling too fast. Is this okay? I think it's a great issue to come to somebody with.
Absolutely. So with that, what advice would you have for entrepreneurs and startups who are looking to build and scale up in Michigan?
Yeah, I would definitely say Michigan is probably one of the best places to do it. We have such a variety of industries and there's support for all of these industries. And that is, I think, what's unique. There's not while there's, yes, focus on certain ones, there's so many resources across the board for whatever is being created. And then naturally, again, I'm biased. I'm from Michigan, so I'm going to say it's the best space to kind of start a business and get going. But then also just trying it out. I mean, starting a business, scaling a business, it's all about trying to see what works and what can scale and what can go well. And obviously not everything's going to be successful. But if you don't try, you won't know not to do that moving forward. But also, again, it's those growing pains and just fighting through it. And, there are going to be days where it's difficult. It's going to be days where you want to quit, but it's totally worth it when you get to the other side. And then the last thing I always like to recommend is finding a mentor. It's so important to be able to have somebody who's done what you're doing in your corner and can help you navigate those questions and those speed bumps that come up. And to be able to have somebody to lean on when it's hard, but who also understands it in a way maybe a family or a friend can't, is extremely extremely important, and it also expands your network. And so I'm a huge proponent of that. I'm a big fan of mentorship.
I could not agree more. Well, Brandee, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to join me today. It's a pleasure learning from you, learning more about 100K ideas, and hearing your insights. I'd also like to thank everyone who has joined us today. If you would like to learn more about the MEDC and specifically about entrepreneurship and innovation and the resources we have available for you, please go to www.michiganbusiness.org/entrepreneurship. Thank you.